I'm Rucha Thorat, pediatric occupational therapist working in Pune. I've been dealing with children with autism and other neurological conditions or neuromotor impairments for past 20 years or so, running my own clinic in Pune. Having said that, I would also like to thank the team of Autism Connect who hosted this program or who wanted to introduce this topic, which is relatively new, which is called as interoception in children with ASD and sensory processing dysfunction. So thank you Autism Connect again for putting forward this topic on the foreground, which might help to understand the missing link for the challenging behaviors that we often see and in the children with autism spectrum communities. So it's a very short time. In fact, this topic can be a huge webinar in itself or a workshop in itself, but I'll try to just touch base upon what is interoception, how does it work, how is it connected to our emotions, how is it connected or impacting our self-regulation, and what are the areas that affects in our day-to-day life if we have issues with interoceptive system and processing. Can it be cured? That is a frequently asked questions by most of the parents, the professionals that I work with, and that is a concern. So can we change the way the people in children with autism are processing the information? So, and what are the missing links that we can try to find out in order to help our children, on whoever are the professionals or the parents in this group are trying to look upon this topic. So what do you think this interoception is about? I am facing right now huge problems with my own interoception because for 20 minutes we've been struggling to go live and the network was not supporting, time was running. So I had a little bit faster beats in my heart, which I could perceive. What is that? What was that indicator of? What was that just rushing of my fast heartbeats or my pulse getting faster or my dryness in the throat just before the event because we thought of canceling it for a while because it was not working well. So what do you think that was? It was my cues of heartbeats that were telling me that I'm anxious, that I'm maybe a little bit frustrated with the things the way they are going on. So these are internal body signals that are making me aware of how I'm feeling in my body, and these feelings are felt by me and expressed by me as emotions, and they sort of motivate me to take necessary action so that I can show you some adaptive responses or self-regulated behavior. So in a nutshell, interoception is the process, I would say, currently in significant buzz around this topic, and so we are trying to step into it step by step. So it's a process of receiving, assessing, observing our own body cues, appreciating our signals that are coming within us, inside us on the foreground. So it is knowing about your own self. What are the internal bodily organs are sending signals to your brain, and how are you interpreting those internal bodily senses? Are you getting overwhelmed by those sensory signals coming from within your body? Are you getting shut down or freeze? How? So that is something about the interoception, is feeling your feelings or feeling your senses coming from inside. And interestingly, I cannot go without talking about some of the pioneers who have done a lot of work over the past 2 or 3 decades maybe about this interoceptive process. The Paletos, the Buddy Craig. I must talk about the Kelly Millar, who is an occupational therapist who has developed a tremendous amount of research and resources for the parents and the caregivers in the field of interoception in our books, through our workshops. And coincidentally, my mentor Kim Barthel, whom I had a conversation 2 or 3 weeks back around the same topics and revealed some of the interesting facts around this topic, that we always think this is the internal signaling process that helps us to know what are we doing or how are we supposed to do. Most of us know by now there are 7 senses: sight, hearing, sense of smell, taste, gustatory, vestibular, and proprioceptive. Okay, so all these senses, sight, we know, you can see the eyes, you can see the ears, you can see the tongue. These are external senses which tells us about what we are seeing, how we are sensing, smelling, what is the flavor, what is the taste like. Then there are 2 hidden senses, which I call hidden because the vestibular sense and the proprioceptive sense, when they work together in harmony, in association with each other, we get an adaptive response, and we call it a sensory integration. That's what we know, everybody knows by now. And but interestingly, you cannot have interoception without the exteroception. What I mean by that, as we develop embryologically, when we are developing, this proprioception and interoception neural fibers are closely wrapped together and they develop together. So biologically, we are designed to work together. So if you ask me, how do I work with my child on interoception? This is interoception is affected. It's not the only sense that I could work with. Okay, now I'm working on interoception, now I'm working on vestibular, now I'm working on proprioceptive. That doesn't happen. You have to work together. Which approach to select, that of course depend upon the child. And of course, what toolbox you can pull out will also depend upon what your child is showing you or giving you the signals. And it is very important to understand the body cues while you're trying to understand why your child is behaving the way he is, or why your child is not able to get yet adjusted or adapted to this environment or situation you are put in. The most commonly problems that parents come up with in children with autism or sensory processing differences communities is about eating or feeding dysfunctions, is about sleeping disturbances, and mostly about the toileting issues. So let me ask you a few simple questions which might give you a little understanding about interoception cues in terms of a typical individual or a normal person. So have you ever felt your stomach growling? Or is your heart beating fast or slow? Are you breathing deeply or shallow? Do you think your muscles are tense? Have you ever felt that way? How does your stomach feel when you're empty or when you're full? How do you feel? How do your bladder feels? How do you feel when you want to urinate, or you know that you want to use the toilet or restrooms? You feel in your muscles. You feel the tension in your muscles. You feel the heartbeat racing. You feel your pulse pulsating. You feel your sweaty arms, isn't it? So that's what is interoception is happening for you. When you're sleepy, your muscles feel lethargic. Your eyes grow heavy. You might feel a little lazy to do your activities, or you may need to dial down or slow down in your whatever actions that you're doing currently. So it is about clear awareness of your body signals that is so important, that sends you feedback about exactly how you're feeling in your body. And it also gives you value and information about yourself, about what you're doing. And those signals motivate you to take certain steps. For example, if your hands are shivering, if your feet are feeling cold, if your muscles are tensed, you may feel, okay, this is a little cold, let me pull on my jacket or a sweater. That's the action that you take, because you are in tune with your bodily sensations and in tune with what signals that inner sensory organs are telling you, and you take appropriate measures for doing so. Another example is if you notice your stomach is growling, and that feeling with the cues that you're hungry, which might motivate you to take and eat or go take an action and go for eating. Or perhaps you notice there is a slight heavy in the stomach or fullness in your stomach. That motivates you from stop eating. Or you feel your throat is dry, that motivates you to go and drink water. You may feel like there are goosebumps or under your skin when you're talking in front of a mob, or your voice is crackling or you're trembling. Then that might tell you about your stage fear factor, or that might tell you that you're a little nervous and anxious about the whole event. So it won't be inappropriate if I say that our interoception also feeds in our emotional regulation part. It won't be inappropriate, or I can put it this way, that interoception is very important foundation for self-regulation. Without self-regulation, interoception might not be also possible, but these two are mutually exclusive terms. Let me put that to you. Anyway, so we have learned so far that it is coming from our inner bodily senses, and it helps us in understanding our body cues, which we feel, and then we label them as our felt emotions. Anger, you're satisfied, you're contented, you are say nervous, you're anxious. These are the felt emotions that you label based upon what bodily cues that you're sensing and feeling, and then interpreting in a small part of the brain, which I don't want to go deeper in that right now, but it's called insula, the anterior insular cortex. That forms a bridge between what are the physiological state of your signals that is coming to your brain, and what is the emotionality that you are offering or you are linking up to your physiological states. It is also seen that through research and evidence that the person who is interoceptively more aware is also and can label the emotional very fast, or have great emotional vocabulary, can change their physiological state very rapidly. So it is not only necessary to understand the cues that are coming from your bodily signals, but also able to perceive it through the felt emotions and label it correctly. That is done by the cortex and the insula, which is kind of an integration center for all your inner bodily signals. So once you label, interpret those signals, then you're able to express how you're feeling. Thirsty, cold, I'm having fever, I'm having headache, I'm having tension in the muscle, I'm tired, I'm nervous, I'm anxious. So all these things you are able to perceive because you are aware more about your bodily cues. And when you're aware more about your bodily cues, you're better in your emotional regulation. And also at the same time, I would feel this individuals, I'm not talking only about the children with autism or sensory processing dysfunction here, but typically even you and I, those who are more aware about our own bodily signals, are more emotionally vulnerable and easily can be perturbed by certain triggers, which can be a subtle inputs to your body, subtle inputs that are coming from the environment to your body, and can tip you towards anxiety. And it is often seen in children with ASD or sensory processing dysfunction. A very common factor associated is anxiety to any new situation they go through. So we always often link, or you often try to analyze through one lens, which is a sensory, that okay, he's getting overwhelmed by the visual distraction or the noise around the situation, in the present situation, or people are new, or the crowd, the touch of other people that accidentally might happen to that child. But there might be this missing link that he's not able to understand his body cues, that how should he get motivated or in order to take a necessary step. And that missing link could be the interoception. So that's why I said it is a foundation for independent self-regulation. So an unreliable interoception experience, now just think about that. Now let's go to the unreliable sensory experiences or sensory inputs that we often see in children with autism spectrum communities, or we see in the children with sensory processing dysfunction, that when you as we said, that it is in a way that it provides a connection between the mind and the body, And it is also a healthy link for us to have a good physical and mental health. So how do you feel hungry? How do you know that you feel hungry, or how do you know that you feel sleepy? And suppose these signals, as we said, those cues, that tightening of the muscles, and your voice could be louder or slower, or your tone in the muscle can change, or you're overall feeling hot and you may put on the fan. All these things that you feel it didn't reach, or the child didn't receive these inputs from their bodily organs. Either that can be one possibility, or at times they are so overwhelmed by that bodily sensation, and that would put them in giving you the behavior at the surface that you see. Some of them scream, some of them run away, some of them bite or throw tantrums, or you experience this meltdown because they do not feel whether they're hungry, whether they are thirsty, whether they are in pain, whether they are hurt, how to express that feeling. They do not have the vocabulary even to do that. So imagine when you have this sensory signals coming from your body which are sending you unreliable inputs to your cortex, where your emotionality is getting coupled with it. How would one react? So before we are labeling a child having challenging behavior, we also need to broaden our lens towards this understanding of whether this child is able to feel what he's feeling, able to sense what he's feeling, and then start analyzing one by one layer about what should we do, what steps should we take in order to go further. So this work of interoception was pioneered by Sherrington in 1906, and it was only limited to the work or the reflexes around the viscera and some of the basic reflexes and visceral sensation that might control our autonomous nervous and central nervous system. And then this work was taken over by many years by researchers and educators and clinicians. And one of the name I would like to present is Craig. And he defined and broadened the definition of interoception, that how sensory signals are related to the internal bodily experiences, and such as pain, thirst, hunger, hot, cold, muscular tension, visceral sensation, your vasomotor activity, your hunger, your hunger for air, also all these signals, and how they are brought to the conscious awareness of you in order to take an action was then presented. And then slowly how you move to become more intuitive about the steps that you would take in based on your interoceptive experiences. So by integrating the bottom-up signals which are coming from within our body and sensory system, reaching to the brain, and then we have our thinking brain, which is our cortex, or we call as a prefrontal cortex, coupling with your insula, which is a hub or integrating station for the interoception. They work together to change our physiological state and our emotional perception, giving them a meaning. So these are sort of a neurological underpinnings of the interoceptions, which are laid down by many researchers and the clinicians around the world. And now it is a globally accepted missing link that one should think about while understanding the children, why they do the way they do, or why they have these challenging behaviors and meltdown at times, and what actions or what responding strategies that one can adapt. So what do you think it might affect when your interoception is affected? Which are the areas of functions that one might feel one might feel difficulties? Imagine about yourself. You do not feel your heart is beating faster, and you kept on pushing in the activity that you are doing. Most of us also do not register most of the times, or do not want to register most of the time, that we are tired, or we need to slow down, we need to dial down our regulator, or sometimes we are so sleepy, but we tend to push ourselves so hard that until it becomes it affects our physical health, we do not respond to these cues. It also happens with us. So imagine for the children with ASDs, autism spectrum communities, that when when internal signals are so misleading to them, are often overwhelming, too much or too less for them, how they must be affecting their physical and mental health. So it affects many aspects of their life, including self-regulation, managing emotions, experiencing pain, staying focused, healthy eating and toileting, dealing with the stress, with anxiety, and often they don't even realize of symptoms of falling sick. So what do? These are the areas they are affected, and we say there is a cure or there is a strategy for it. Isn't that a good news for you all? So what I mean to say that there is a cure, I'm not here, or nobody can fix this problem. We're not here to fix the interoception, or there is nothing like right or wrong approach, or right and wrong interoception, or correct or incorrect interoception. You have to understand that this is a very unique experience and very individualized experience for that person. No two brain can think alike, can work alike, and express alike. Same thing with the children with autism spectrum communities, that, or even for you and me, the way I feel hungry, or the way my heart would beat faster or slower in the difficult situation, or in way I would respond in certain particular environment, you may not feel that way. So you can't be judgmental about, yes, this is, you are wrong or you are right. First, that is the first step of understanding. Oh, he is feeling this way, that is his unique experiences. I'm feeling that way, that is my unique experiences, and it can differ from individual to individual. That is our unique architecture of the brain, and that's why you need to dive a little deeper in understanding how our brain functions. So what are some of the practices that, and what is OT, occupational therapy, role in that, and how can we support you in, or how can you as a parent can understand the process to work with your children? And the first practice, and which is almost said many times by the researcher and the clinicians around, and its evidence practice suggests that you have to promote the feelings of regulation and safety first. The child has to feel safe and comfortable in the environment he's living in. So first and foremost, that's the best practice about promoting your feelings of regulations and safety. The second is relationship. How are you with your child? Is your child connected to you? And what can you do to make him feel connected? That is the second step for, knowing your child better. Third is that you have to invite that learner. Your child, I may quote it as a learner, that invite the child or the learner. Does he want to participate in the activity that you're creating for him? You cannot demand, or you cannot regulate the way you want him to be regulated. You can be present to him and attune to his bodily signals. And that is enough to begin with, so that he can understand you and get co-regulated with you. That is the third step of mutual co-regulation, so that there is sort of a give and take interactions, or beaming and gleaming starts with this children with you. So he smiles back to you and you smile back to him. Or he feels his face, you can make out from his frowns, or tension in the bodies, or the eyes when they are widely open with anxiety, or they are shut down due to some fatigue, or whatever may be the reason. So you can of course express it for them, that, oh, you're feeling tired, or, oh yes, are you feeling tense in your muscles, or are you feeling relaxed? You can make them experience what is tension by making a tight fist or giving them some pressure, or labeling their emotions. Are you hurt? Are you feeling sad? Oh, I'm feeling very sorry for you. So creating that connection with the learner is the foremost test, or the step in when you are inviting children to participate with you in any particular activity, or inviting them for the process of interoceptive awareness. Children with autism spectrum communities or with sensory processing dysfunction, as presented by one of the neuropsychologists, Garfinkel, in her neuropsychological model, the 3 steps, that interoceptive accuracy is important, and then comes the interoceptive sensitivity, to how much you are able to sense your bodily signals, and then your awareness, that is a metacognitive or cognitive process which is required to take the step. So in any 3 areas, your child may have issues in dealing with their interoception, and based on that, you need to be always very curious rather than being judgmental about what the child is feeling. So that could be your 3rd step, that yes, I am curious to know what is happening with you or what is going on with you, and honor first of all his unique experiences. That, as I said, that he is feeling tense right now in his muscles or in his body, and he's saying that, then yes, he is feeling tense. You may not feel tense, so you have to honor this unique experiences. This is much presented in a blog, and as a resource, you can go on to the Kaylee Mallar's, which is Occupational Therapist resource for the parents to look at. She has presented a lot of workshops and free resources for the parents and donors who want to step into or utilize what is interoception, or look into the way to move forward. Play. Now, play is never cancelled for occupational therapist. It has always have to be on the foremost of your treatment strategies, and is the best tool through which you can connect with the children with any neurodiversity or childhood adversity, I would say. And it has to be fun. It need not always have to be structured, or need not always have to be goal. Okay, I have to play because you have to use your 2 hands, so that is the play, which is indicative of, looking at, I'm working on your vision or visual motor part, I'm going to work on your hands now, so I'm designing a play for hands. No, just play anything silly, anything stupid, or even a peekaboo, or something like you're appearing surprising element into it to grab the child's attention, to connect to you and understand what you are doing with them. It can be any silly play, rough and tumble play. It can be pillow fights. It can be showing them funny pictures and mimicking them. Anything that will bring joy to the child and fun, and help him to actively participate in what you're doing, is the play. That kind of a play I mean here, that you should look for. Your autists are always there to help you with the sensory strategies in terms of proprioception, which will help you to make how your muscles are feeling, what you mean by tension in a muscle, how can you force use through a muscle, how are you oriented in your body parts. So activities which will help them make their body aware, or their body parts aware, can be introduced to them. Of course, all these strategies are based on what type of child you are dealing with and what is his best learning strategies. What I mean to make this interoceptive supports depends upon whether your child requires more of visual cues, or he requires more of hands-on approaches, or is then present to him that way. I mean, there is no particular rule that this has to be done this way, but a few of the steps that I told you, these are the guiding principles that you can start looking and connecting with your children first, develop the relationship, make them feeling of yourself, of that they are safe and this is a comfortable environment for you to be in, and have some fun element. Once you establish these steps, you can then move forward. Okay, this child may require a little bit of body awareness stuff to go with, or this child may require to understand what is the muscle tension means. This child may require to understand what is gravity is all about. He's scared of the heights, or he's scared of loud noises, or he might be scared of too much of visual input. So you need to sort out, layer, or unscaffold the things for them one by one. What is the prerequisite to move further? And based on that, the sensory strategies can be formulated. You can show them the body charts, how the heart, where the heart is, where the lungs is, where your tummy is, where your bladder is, how do you do pee or poo, those sort of a picture. Another interesting factor about interoception that I remember, that it has a maximum sensitive part is the rectum. And most of the children with autism spectrum communities and SPDs come up with a complaint of constipation either, or often going for urination either. So this can be a missing link. They hold on to the soft muscles of the rectum so much that they can hold on to poo for a longer time than an individual, and that leads to constipation. And then you have to evaluate whether is this the emotionality that they are hanging on or they are lacking, or is this the sensation or feeling of sensation through the rectum is too low or too overwhelming for them. And for this, and how do you evaluate? As a parent, of course, you have to understand their body cues, but there are a lot of questionnaires available based on that you can use, and which provides you with the knowledge of how your interoception is processing for your child. So we need to move, I would say, a little bit from our compliance-driven approach to more regulation-driven approaches, I would say, which gives us a little broader outlook about why your child is doing the way he's doing. We need to stop, I would say, compliance-driven approaches, because just putting sticker on a hand or just showing them some chocolate candy is not going to help them to understand their body cues. Instead, if you make them understand, feel safe, feel comfortable and regulated, and drive their attention to their body cues, that might help them to develop this intrinsic motivation and get connected to what your body is doing with you and how you're feeling. So establish that missing link by educating them, either with the pictures, as I said, either with your physical handling, as I said before, and present to them the step-by-step might shift us as a better parents, as a better clinicians or therapy givers. So try to broaden our sense towards sensory lens, towards the movement lens, towards the interoceptive lens, then which approach fits best for the child depends upon what your analysis is. So I feel it's very, we can say it's a key, understanding interoception can be a key interpreting unexplained behavior difficulties with the bodily functions. And with more research and more our understanding and clinical observation, I'm sure we can pay more attention to this eighth sense, which we call as interoception, and work with it through our client with more compassion. So I would like to end my talk here, because we were given 30 minutes for this presentation, and whatever the questions can be answered. So over to you. Thank you for attending. I would like to finish the talk and finish the live chat. If there are no more questions, you can always email me on rucha.thorat@gmail.com and reach out to me for your personal queries and suggestions. Thank you so much for attending.